Now, as we begin our message, and now we'll turn on the mic.
And now, the end is near, and so I'll speak the final sermon. You know how it is.
Thank you very much. Well, my friends, indeed, the second final sermon anyway. But David's not here next week, so we had to do it this week. Today we take this 12th step. Having found the good news, we are called to share it. Ironically, we're not that good at sharing good news. We're not that good at sharing good news even in our society, or that good news of our spiritual awakening with others. Perhaps we don't want to appear too pushy. But after 40 years of ministry, Richard Rohr laments that maybe he wasn't pushy enough. He concludes that until people's basic egocentricity is radically exposed, revealed for what it is, and foundationally redirected, much religion becomes occupied with rearranging the deck chairs on a Titanic cruise ship, cruising with isolated passengers, each maintaining his or her personal program for happiness while the whole ship is sinking. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they say our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. If it really heals, they will come. Let's be clear that long-term attraction does not mean having a great music program, a charismatic minister, even a great youth program. It's about creating an atmosphere of love, grace, openness, honesty, prayer, and healing for body, mind, and spirit, for everyone. For everyone. And then having experienced that, it's about paying it forward. In Matthew 25, verse 40, Jesus says, "What you do to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you do to me." And it's the spiritual equivalent of the first law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot really be created or destroyed. It merely is converted into different uses. So what comes around must go around, or it doesn't come around again. Think of the act of breathing. If we only inhale, it suffocates. Or if we only exhale, we die. It has to be a continuous exchange. If we only exist for ourselves, we die. We want to be invitational and not offend anyone. But Jesus didn't call people to comfort. He called them to ministry. He called them to a life of transformation and compassionate service. We cannot program grace and mercy. We don't earn a spiritual awakening, but we do have to show up for it. We have to do our inner work, get the ego out of the way so we can listen to and find God, the love of all loves, who is at the core of our being. I've long admired the work of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon, but haven't felt it necessary to attend either one. It's taken me until this point in my life and Rohr's very helpful book for me to truly see the connection between spirituality and addiction. Rohr says, addiction is a spiritual disease, a disease of the soul, an illness resulting from longing, frustrated desire, and deep dissatisfaction, which is ironically the necessary beginning of any spiritual path. In the church, when someone is in addiction and behaving badly, we tend to see it as a moral failure. And when we name it as such, we get a passive-aggressive pushback and nobody wins. AA says addicts are looking for love in all the wrong places, and you can just hear that old country tune going on, but they're still looking for love. And I would add, and usually causing a hell of a lot of damage to themselves and others along the way. And so together, we must look for healing and for true love. And what is true love? Rohr says we confuse intensity with intimacy. Intensity with intimacy. In the search for intimacy, the addict takes a false turn, hopefully a detour, and relates to an object, a substance, an event, or a repetitive anything, whether it's shopping, thinking, blaming, abusing, eating, anything, in a way that will not and cannot work for them. And the crazy thing is that you need more and more of what does not work. Rohr says if something is really working for you, then less and less will satisfy. He says, on my good days, a grasshopper could convert me. Just something that says, life is such a gift. Anyone remember offhand what is the first of the 10 Commandments? No, you won't have a pop quiz today?
Love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul.
Love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind. Yeah, that's how Jesus paraphrased it. Yeah, and in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Scriptures, it is, I, the Lord your God, am one God. You shall have no other gods before me. So that's the parallel, darling. Thank you. And so it's about the sin of idolatry, making something God that is not God. Rohr gives a good self-check question, which is so annoying, but it's so helpful. He says, ask yourself this: what do I think about more than anything else? What do I think about more than anything else? What is taking up space in my head, in my heart, in my body? Has this become a God? And if so, is this a God that I want to worship? I mean, if God is taking up that space, that's well and good, but if not, it's a good question to ask ourselves. The God that I want to worship is the one I experience in Jesus, who says to his disciple Peter in Luke 22, verse 31-32, Peter, the tempter will sift you like wheat. And once you have recovered, then you can help your brothers and sisters. Jesus says this to him in the context of the Last Supper, where everyone, including Peter, is filled with bravado, swearing allegiance to Jesus no matter what. Well, we know how well that turned out. A few hours later, Peter swears he's never heard of the guy. But note that Jesus doesn't say to him, I can see that you're going to turn into a completely unworthy candidate, so stay away from my little flock. It's not what he says to him. Jesus knows that Peter is going to screw this up, that he will give in to the temptation to save his own skin. But he trusts that this is not the fullness of who Peter is. This is not the fullness of who he is. Peter, when you've turned your life around again, you will show the way for your brothers and sisters. Jesus trusts in Peter so that Peter can trust in himself to live into that life-giving ministry. With this book study and with my weekend at Sorrento 2 weekends ago, recovering soul enroll 3 weekends ago, this is the closest I have felt to being an evangelist for a long time. And close enough, or as close as I have wanted to be a witness, to say this is so important. This is so life-changing. This is so life-giving. In our last session with Roar's book on Friday, the book Breathing Underwater, there was an overwhelming desire within the group, and I think there were 18 of us that showed up, to continue in some way. We knew of others who would have liked to be a part of the study, but other commitments made it impossible. But it can be done. I'm happy to leave a copy of my notes, and I'm sure Bookingham's would be quite happy to order a few more books. But whether it's that study, or a weekend retreat, or something else that goes on that gives you life, that is what churches at their core are supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about having experienced the good news of the gospel and sharing it in everything we do. As Joanne picked up from that confirmation bulletin, are you willing to follow Christ in your public and private life? And we can only do so by the grace of God. The good news is that we are loved into newness. We are transformed from broken to whole. And we want others to experience that wholeness when we feel it ourselves. We want others to experience that wholeness for body, mind, and spirit. It's the reason that we're called a church. Not a concert hall, not a Rotary Club, not a social club, no matter how good those things are. It's one beggar showing another beggar where the bread is. And oh, my friends, there's more than crumbs. There is a bloody banquet for everyone. For everyone. Amen.